Hi, everyone. Welcome to second Wednesday afternoon break. I am the host of this short webinar / podcast. I'm Mike Cassar. I'm one of the attorneys here at Foster Swift, and I work in our Lansing and Southfield offices. And each month we do this webinar and we talk with one of our firm's experts about an interesting and relevant topic. Today, our guest is Amanda Dernovshek. Amanda, I'll give a brief introduction of her. She has both her undergraduate and MBA degrees from East Tennessee State University, where she graduated with honors. She then went to law school at Michigan State College of Law in East Lansing, and she's been a member of Foster Swift's Business and Tax Group for over 4 years at this point. Amanda handles general business and tax issues for companies both large and small, but her primary focus is employee benefits, executive compensation issues, and she also handles some intellectual property issues as well. And our topic for today, you guys all know what we're going to be talking about. It's best practices for businesses at year end. This is especially relevant right now because we're a little more than 2 weeks out from the start of 2023, which this year has just flown by. As it turns out, our business and tax group is very busy this time of year. There's a lot of things our attorneys can help businesses with to make a smooth transition to the next year. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking with Amanda about today. So before I get into the interview, I just want to say that if you have a question, you can submit it via the chat function. I will, of course, monitor throughout. And if you have a more detailed question, you can always shoot an email to myself or Amanda, or always just give us a call as well. Finally, this session is recorded and we send it out to you guys via email shortly after we're done. We also post it on our website, so you can always go back and rewatch if you need it. All right, Amanda, thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Mike. I know you mentioned that this is such a busy time of the year, so I know we are planning to keep this kind of concise and short for all of our participants today, and I hope that you all will appreciate it. I know that we're feeling the pressure here to get some transactions wrapped up and some tax things taken care of before December 31st. So I'm sure that our participants are feeling that too.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the topic we're going to start with, 2022 tax planning. Of course, there's still time to consult your attorney or your CPA about things you can do to minimize your tax liability for this year. Amanda, what are some things that an attorney can help with that business owners would want to think about in this regard for at least 2022 tax planning?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the conversations that we're having right now with business owners is, like you said, related to that tax liability for 2022 and how can we minimize that liability. So I just have a quick list of some things that you can consider doing to lower that liability. And the first one is making charitable donations. So usually charitable donations from a business to a nonprofit can qualify for a tax deduction. So if your business has a connection to a local nonprofit, or you just feel charitable and in the spirit of the holiday and you'd like to donate money to a nonprofit, that's one item that can be tax deductible for your business. If you're looking for other ways to find tax deductions, you could consider investing in new business equipment. We do see a lot of our clients do this at the end of the year. They'll buy, new computer equipment or new machinery, depending on what their business is. And those types of purchases are also tax deductible. So if your business is in need of, upgrading some materials and equipment, now might be a good time to do that before the end of the year. One other way to reduce that overall tax liability is to contribute to your qualified retirement plans. I know that most employers do make a contribution at the end of the year to their 401k plans or other profit sharing plans. But if you're looking to decrease your tax liability, maybe consider whether your business can afford increasing that contribution. That would be really well received from employees, which can be great for retention. And you get a little bit of a tax break too. So I think it's a win-win for both the employer and the employees. But I just want to, mention briefly that each of these items, while they seem pretty simple and should be simple, it's important to consult with either an attorney or your CPA before you actually implement them and really determine what kind of like if you knock down one domino, what are the effects of those things? So I would just give that caveat to talk to your CPA, or, give us a call here at Foster Swift, and we can talk through what those different options might do for your business specifically.
Got it. So each of the questions that we're going to be talking about today they're kind of siloed. They're different topics all around this area of 2022 year-end planning for businesses. The next topic I want to talk about is employee handbooks. Now, I work in our employer services group, and Amanda's obviously in the business corporate group here at Foster Swift. And we recommend almost all employers have employee handbooks. There's good reasons for that. And Amanda, can you tell us a little bit why they're so important and what kind of year-end changes you might suggest to an employer?
Yeah, of course. So an employee handbook, I know most businesses do have employee handbooks in place, but we occasionally come across maybe new businesses or even established businesses that don't have something in writing. And the purpose of the employee handbook is really to clearly state the expectations of the employer and the employee. So the handbook should provide written documentation of the employer's rules. It should include notices and policies that reflect applicable laws and legal defenses that employees may have. It should have a designated person to contact if the employee has any issues with understanding anything in the employee handbook, or if they have issues that come up through working. It should definitely outline the employer obligations to the employee, and there should be an acknowledgement by the employee that they've read the handbook. So that's kind of the purpose of a handbook. But oftentimes people will put together this great handbook when they start their business, and then they kind of just put it in a drawer and leave it there. They don't update it, they don't revisit it. And so we really encourage our clients to take a look at this at the end of the year. Reflect on, what changes has your business had this year? Some of the more common changes that we're seeing right now relate to work from home policies or flex time policies. And those things may not have been written down in a formal way and added to the employee handbook, but the end of the year is really a good time to do that. And we recommend sharing that, of course, with all of your employees and asking them to acknowledge that they received those updated policies. There may have been other changes related to COVID as well. So I guess those are the kind of things that I would just flag for you. Maybe think about what are those rules for working from home or flex time or COVID related changes that your business may have experienced. The most important thing here is that the policies in that employee handbook should really match how you operate as a business. It should be a guiding, a group of policies that guides how you act as an employer with your employees. And that's really for liability protection for you. And it's for clarity with your employees. They want to know that if they pull up the policy related to flex time, that what that policy says is how you as the employer are going to operate the business. So, make sure that your policies are up to date and that they're accurate. And then realize that no two employers are the same. So no two employee handbooks are going to be the same, but it's certainly something that we can help you to customize and make sure that it is consistent with your operation.
Yeah, I really just want to stress that last point with the employee handbooks. What the employer is doing and what is in the employee handbook should definitely jive with each other. And treating all employees the same according to the handbook is incredibly important. That comes up in my practice all the time in insurance defense work for employers. Let's move on to the Corporate Transparency Act. Now, I don't know if many employers, business owners have heard of this, but it's a law that passed at the beginning of 2021. It hasn't yet taken effect in majority part, but it's going to change reporting requirements for many small and medium-sized businesses. And Amanda, I was hoping you could talk a little bit about what that law is and what it may require.
Yeah, absolutely. So you may have seen me take a really deep breath when you started talking about this Corporate Transparency Act. This is kind of a revolutionary law that feels very huge to people in this industry. Our business and tax group has been talking about this over the last several months, and we're really trying to figure out, what does the law say? How is this going to impact our clients? And how can we help our clients to make sure they're complying? Because the CTA, which is the acronym for this act, the CTA is is unlike anything else that's currently out there. The CTA will require certain companies to report information about their owners, and these companies will include corporations, limited liability companies, or really any other entity that is formed by filing something with your state's Secretary of State. So beneficial owners and individuals who assist companies in forming, which would be like CPAs and attorneys and paralegals, all of those people have to report their full legal name, their date of birth, their residential or business address, and then a unique identifying number from an acceptable identification source. So if your business falls under this act, and if you're an owner or you assist the company in forming, then you have to report this personal information to a government database that's still being developed. There's not something like this out there now, especially for a lot of small companies. And what the government is really concerned about is they want to have access to information so that they can act quickly in the case of like terrorism or something similar that's going on. So this act comes into play beginning January 1, 2023. All newly created companies that fall under the umbrella of the CTA will be required to report immediately. And then existing entities will have 1 year to report. So there is a little bit of time for companies that are already established before they have to begin reporting. But, and actually I misspoke, it's January 1 of 2024 is when this comes into play. So we have 1 year before these companies have to start reporting, but it's essentially going to cover a whole host of companies that have never had to report this type of information. And there are some penalties for not complying, including civil penalties of payments or potential jail time. So it sounds kind of abstract, but what it boils down to is that small businesses are going to have to report to the government who they're owned by, their beneficial owners, including their name and other personal information. And the rules that have come out now, there's about 100 pages of regulations, but we are expecting another couple tranches of rules to come out in 2023, which will help to supplement some of the questions that are outstanding now. And we're going to be, our firm specifically is going to be developing some way to make sure that our clients are complying with this. And we're trying to figure out how we can help our clients to make sure that they meet the deadlines, give the proper information, and those types of things. And I guess one last piece is there are some exemptions from this law. I think there's about 25 different exemptions. So I only want to mention one of those today because I think that it does knock out quite a bit of companies. And we just are calling this the large operating company exemption. This is a company that employs more than 20 full-time employees, has an operating presence that's physical within the United States, and has filed federal income tax and a federal income tax demonstrating more than $5 million in gross receipts. So if you're a large operating business, this rule doesn't apply to you. But if you don't meet those three requirements, then you may fall under this new reporting act and be required to report. And then I think, this goes back to something I said earlier, Mike, about every business is different, every employer is different. And the analysis of whether your business is encompassed by the CTA or not is going to be dependent on, where are you located, what are you doing, how many employees do you have, and those types of things. So we're anticipating a lot of conversations next year with our clients about whether or not they qualify for this reporting requirement and, how do we go about reporting. So some of those things are still kind of up in the air because they're still developing the database and they're still coming out with additional regulations to explain what they're expecting. But 2023 is going to be a really big year for the CTA, and we anticipate a lot more information coming out. And just to supplement that, Foster Swift has a CTA Corporate Transparency Act webpage. We have a team of attorneys who are monitoring the changes in this area and who are developing that program for our clients. So, reach out to one of the attorneys on that page, and we're happy to chat with your business about, whether you're included and what steps you need to take to make sure you're in compliance on time.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that website, Amanda, because that's really important. You just listed off a whole bunch of really important information. And for people to actually see it and digest it, it's good to have that web page.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. We are too working on kind of like a Q&A type of thing for that page too. So be looking for that early next year, just to answer some of the basics, and it'll go in more detail than what I have today, but it will provide more details about what we currently know about this act and what to expect.
got it. Thanks. So that our next topic is an interesting dichotomy between the Corporate Transparency Act and privacy law.
Yeah.
And so here's the question. The legal landscape of privacy law is changing like crazy right now.
Mhm.
There's so many different laws popping up, individual states. There's stuff in Europe that applies to companies here in the US as well. What things should a business think about with regard to complying with all of these privacy laws?
Yeah, so I think, first I want to absolutely acknowledge that this area is evolving quickly, and it gets muddy quickly too, because like you said, there are different state requirements, there are different country requirements, and depending on where your business is operating or where you seek out customers, whether that's in the United States or outside of the United States, you're going to be encompassed by different rules. So, at a minimum, I think every business should have a set of terms and conditions and a privacy policy. Our group, Business and Tax Group, has worked with many clients this year to develop those for their websites. They can be fairly simple for newer businesses, but they'll inevitably need to be more complex as your business grows and depending on what type of industry you're in. If you are a company that has an app, for example, then your terms and conditions and your privacy policy are probably going to be a lot different than someone who owns a spa or something that isn't as technologically driven. But in addition to those policies, every company should really explore the option of cyber insurance. I know that it can be a little bit daunting if you don't have cyber insurance now and you're not sure how much you should get or what it should cover. But we do have experts at the firm who can help look at those policies, and we do rely a lot on insurance brokers to help assist us in understanding what certain policies cover. One thing that's come up a couple of times is related to incident responses. So, for example, if your business has a data breach and you do have cyber insurance, does that cyber insurance help you in covering the cost that it takes to basically notify all of your customers that this has happened and do that in compliance with the law? Depending on where the data breach is and what customers are affected, you may end up having to send hundreds or thousands of notices, and that inevitably costs money, especially when you get the attorneys involved, your insurance provider involved, and then even just shipping those letters out can be costly. So one thing to think about is, does your cyber insurance assist in the cost of those things when there are incidents that you need to respond to? And that's something that we can help you to understand in those insurance policies and make sure that it is going to cover what you're going to need when the time comes. So if you decide to look at cyber insurance and you'd like help with figuring out what's the right size policy or what's the right type of policy for your business, we can certainly assist with that. And then my last piece of advice is, if there is an incident or you're worried there could have been some type of breach with your email system or your database, act fast. Don't wait around and see, what's going to come of this. You need to take steps to investigate the issue and determine if there was a breach immediately. And Foster Swift has a cyber hotline, which we started up, I want to say it must have been in 2020. So you can call the cybersecurity hotline and it will send you to a messaging center, and we will respond to you very quickly to make sure that we can help you through that, cyber incident or whatever is going on. So I guess those are my tips for dealing with cyber and just knowing that things are changing every day. But we're here to help. And, it seems kind of daunting, but take a step at least in the right direction and get some of these policies in place and consider a cyber insurance policy as well. I think that will give a lot of people peace of mind.
Yeah. And I think these cyber issues with, hacking, database breaches, et cetera, they're only going to become more common as we continue to advance and more rely on technology like we are now.
Yep.
So that's incredibly important advice. Thank you so much. I don't
Absolutely.
see any questions in the chat. Again, if you have questions, you can feel free to reach out to either Amanda or myself. You can call us or email us. Next month, we do this every month, the second Wednesday of the month. We're going to be back here on January 11th at noon. I'm going to be talking with Foster Swift attorney Tyler Olney. I work with Tyler on a daily basis, and we both help employers and insurance companies defend workers' compensation cases. And this is a really important topic because there's going to be a lot of changes in the law with regard to workers' comp. We're going to see a new legislature in the state of Michigan here be put into place in January, and that's going to change. We expect some changes in the law. It's going to be important for employers and insurance companies to be aware of those potential changes, and we're going to talk all about that. There will be an email. Again, we will send you a recording of this session, and thanks so much for spending time with us today. Have a good rest of your day and happy holidays.